and welcome everyone. My name's Melissa Jackson. I'm a research fellow with the Climate Action Beacon at Griffith University. I'll be the moderator for today's session, which we hope will be really informative and open up a bit of discussion. The topic today is around charting a path forward on climate action, and this is the first webinar we've held for Griffith University's Climate Action Beacon. And we'll be giving you a bit more information about that initiative today, but the main aim for today is to really present some of the latest climate science, which was released a couple of weeks ago through the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 6th Assessment Report. And we'll be turning to our panel of experts to talk and discuss some of the implications for our region and our nation and globally. And our panel will also highlight some of the initiatives and activities that Griffith researchers are involved in through the Climate Action Beacon that could lead us towards a zero carbon and climate resilient future. Before we get into the detail of the webinar, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. Because this is a virtual meeting, we may be coming from places across the country, but the Griffith University campuses in Brisbane, at South Bank, Nathan and Mount Gravatt and Logan are situated on the land of the Yuggera, Yagara, Jagera and Turrbal peoples. Logan is also the land of the Yugambeh people, and our Gold Coast campus is situated on the land of the Yugambeh and Kombumerri peoples. And I'm coming to you today from the land of the Bundjalung Nation, which is in northern New South Wales. So I'm sure we're spread across the country. I'd just like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples across the country and joining us here today. So for today's webinar, it'll be roughly in two parts. I'll do a brief introduction and then we'll hand over to our panel speakers for around half an hour. And we'll then open up to you for a Q&A. So we're hoping that will go for about 20 minutes. We'll be able to wrap up by well in advance of 1:30 p.m. to get you on your way. So in terms of housekeeping, today's session is being recorded and we'll post this on our website for later viewing. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you could keep your microphones on mute, but if you have any technical problems or want to raise any questions, you can use the chat function, which if you're not familiar with, it's a pop-up screen down the bottom, a little speech bubble that has chat under it, and that will open a panel on the side of your screen and you can enter questions there. I think the default is that those questions will go to everyone, but you can select particular people too. I guess there's a lot of people with their videos on blank at the moment. Happy to keep it that way, but it is also nice to have faces to look at as well. So if you want to show your faces, even if you're munching away on lunch, that's fine. Good to know that we've got a good audience here today. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of Griffith's Climate Action Beacon before I hand over to our speakers. The Beacon seeks to develop knowledge, leadership and capacity and responses to enable effective and just climate action through society with a focus on interdisciplinary research and cross-sectoral practice collaborations. There's a focus on partnerships with civil society, government, industry and communities. And there's also the Beacon initiatives recently announced is their second Beacon, which is about disrupting violence. And I'm not sure if it's announced yet, but soon will be another Beacon emerging very shortly as well. So these are really about Griffith University's commitment to addressing real world problems through leading edge and interdisciplinary research. The Climate Action Beacon has been underway this year and has two key platforms. The first one is the Climate Ready Initiative that's led by Sam McKay. It's a social impact initiative and it works with society to shape a climate ready Australia through facilitating agenda setting, empowering critical partnerships, championing the national capability needed to secure a prosperous and just future for all, And we've got a very impressive board that is advising on that process, including Rosemary Addis, Professor John Hewson, and our own Professor Brendan Mackey, who'll be speaking here today, among many other distinguished people. Today, we'll be really focusing on the second part of the Climate Action Beacon, which is the Climate Action Research Platform. In particular, there are three key themes under which the Climate Action Research Platform is operating. Theme 1 is about motivating climate action. Theme 2 is around climate transitions, how we transition to a zero carbon, climate resilient future. And theme 3 is about climate justice. How do we ensure that these transitions and actions that we take are just? And introducing our panel speakers relates to those three themes as well. Firstly, first up will be Professor Brendan Mackey, who is lead coordinating author for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Working Group 2 about impacts, vulnerability and adaptation. And that report is due out next year. Professor Mackey has a PhD in ecology from the ANU, Australian National University, and has authored over 250 publications in the fields of environmental science and policy. And Brendan is director of the Griffith Climate Action Beacon at Griffith. Leading theme 1, motivating climate action, is Associate Professor Kerry Foxwell-Norton, who is with the School of Humanities, Languages and Social Sciences at Griffith, and she's a communication studies scholar. Third, following Kerry, will be Professor Chris Fleming, who is currently director of the Griffith Institute for Tourism, and he's Professor of Economics at the Griffith Business School and former director of Griffith University's MBA program. So Chris is the research lead for theme 2, future climate transitions. And our final speaker for today is Professor Susan Harris-Rimmer, who is the director of the Griffith University Policy and Innovation Hub, and was previously Deputy Head of School for Research in the Griffith Law School, and has been Director of Studies at the ANU Asia Pacific College of Diplomacy, and among other distinguished accolades. And Professor Rimmer will be, Harris-Rimmer will be the lead for the Climate Action Beacon's Theme 3, Climate Justice. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Mackey to talk about the climate science. Over to you, Brendan.